Welcome. In this video I will show you how to exploit the DAO pattern. DAO is a kind of design pattern where you can encapsulate some simple objects to transfer data between your between the database and the Java application you're building. So I'm going to show you the DAO pattern. It's building off the last video I made about the jdbc connection. So in order to start the project, it's going to be a simple project. I'm going to show you quickly here. I got this table. The schema is in the GitHub in the link below, but I have this schema for this table called DAO lesson, which is what we're doing today. DAO lesson, this is the schema. I've already executed the schema and my table is blank right now. It's an empty table. And yeah, you should go ahead and make, I guess it's a good idea to just make your database, your table first. So just use this code here, create table account, and we're going to have the ID, primary key, and one column called example. Okay, so on your IntelliJ, create a new project. Oops, yeah, we'll create a new project. It's going to be a Maven project, and we could call it YouTube DAO. And let's go. I think you just have to click create. New window. There you go. So we just created a little Maven project, and they give you your source folders, your idea, your POM, which is important. And it's important that they show you your POM straight off, because here we're going to copy and paste the only dependency we really need, which is what will connect our database. So I already have it set up here. I have the dependency. I'll just copy and paste that into here. That's our dependency. And you could update it if you want. Okay, postgresql dependency. Before I showed the downloading a jar file, but I don't think you have to do that here. If you just have this dependency here, you'll be able to connect to your database. Then we have to go ahead and make our run and our packages. Let's go into source main resources. Let's first add a file here, and we'll call this application.properties. Now this is important because this application.properties will help us put our DB connection credentials. So I'll show you. Again, we're going to copy and paste. This goes into your application.properties. This is all on GitHub. Okay, now what this will do is we're going to set up our connection so that so your username and password for your DB will not be exposed in your source code. As you see, that current schema equals DAO lesson. Alright, so let's go ahead and start building some stuff here. We'll go ahead and make our first package here called com.logic. You do your company name generally. Then from here we'll build out some more packages. Let's first make our main method here. App. That's where our main method will be. And let's build out our other packages. We'll have com.DAO. Moving stuff around here, trying to get more comfortable. Alright, new package, com.model, new package, com.service, spell that right, new package, util. Okay, and in our util class we'll make our connection. I think it's called connection util, right? Connection util class. This is how we will get connected. This will be our connection. We need connection. So I think I'm just going to copy and paste. I already have some good information here. So I'll just copy and paste all this. It's the same shit. This is all very like turgid stuff. Okay. That looks good. Connection util. Yeah, I spelled that right? Connection util. Alright. And what's important here is that the username and password is not exposed in this class here. Okay. The only thing we have here is a file reader. And what this file reader does is it reads this application.properties that we built earlier. And so we don't have our username and password exposed anymore. Okay, so there's also notation in there to help you out. But this is your connection util, and this is a singleton pattern. So this class only produces one object, and that object is an instance of. I might not be wording this perfectly, but it's creating just a connection. So every time you call this class, it'll create a connection to the database for you. Alright, so in the DAO layer, we'll create a couple new class interface, and it's going to be really small here. So we're going to create a account DAO, an account DAO class. Let me just check on something here. I might have done this backwards, but we're going to create a new class here, call it interface. This will be an I account DAO. Yeah, an I account DAO interface. But our account DAO is going to implement I account DAO. So that's pretty critical. But I know it's so confusing because you jump back and forth and it's all over the place, but we're only going to have one interface method here. It's called int_insert account A. This will all make sense later. Alright, and we're going to import. This won't let us import yet. You see it's red here, so we're going to create an account class. Alright, so we created a public class account in our model. This will be our table. This will help build the table basically, or this will help, yeah, you'll see. You see account there, and we got a table account. It's gonna make sense later. So I account DAO, we can now import, and the error will go away. And while we're here, let's create our other class in the service layer. Let's call it account service. Now we have an account service class. Let me see if there's any stuff I'm going to put in there. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of coding in the account service class. It's not going to be the worst of it. But yeah, the main thing is dependency injection. You'll see where the dependency injection becomes kind of critical. So we go back to our app.java, and since we're going to be entering data, we're going to have to put a static scanner in here. The static scanner scan equals new scanner system.in. So now we have a static scanner, and we can now do a main method. Main, remember sout, or you could do sout, or no, main and no print. Yeah, main enter. Yeah, that's your main method. And this gets really tricky here, but we're gonna use our account service. So we're going to want an instance of the account service class. Okay, and that's going to be useful. Let's see. Public static void. Let me see if I'm doing this right. Yeah. And we're gonna just do a while loop. It's not, we don't really have to, but I'll do it just in case. This one, we needed this to be like a menu that we will interact with for a while. Don't have to do this, but I'll do it anyway. While true, we're gonna start prompting the user for a little bit here. Alright, we'll do sout. Please enter an example number while scan dot has next int, or while it's not a next int, we're just gonna say try again, next line. So we're trying to force the user to input an integer. Int example equals scan.nextInt. Okay, so please enter an example number. And in our table, we have a field, or we have a column called example. So they're going to enter a number, and that number they enter, an integer, is going to go into this table here. And that entry will go into a column, and that column will have a serialized ID. Remember, we're just making a table with just an ID primary key and just one column value, which is just holds just whatever number the user types in. Account A equals new account, and we're going to pass in example. Okay, so we're going to make an account, an instance of account, and we're going to pass in this example. And I think I was supposed to make a constructor for did I already make the constructor? I forget. No. My eyes are playing tricks on me. We'll import the class here. Okay. An example. So yeah, we have to make the constructor in the account class. I haven't even touched my account class yet. So we'll go back to the account class. We'll have private private int ID and private int example. Yeah, private int ID and private int example. Those are our fields we're dealing with. And we're going to make a constructor right now for that example that we wanted. So what we do is right click, we do generate constructor for that example int. Alright, and I'm going to write a notation here, useful. Say useful constructor, especially for this video we're making. And I'll show you just how to make other constructors as well. You can make constructors for all the fields, for both of these fields, or all the fields. We'll generate another constructor. We use both. And just to show you, generate another constructor. Let's say we did like a noargs constructor. See, that's a noargs constructor. And we'll also generate getters and setters. And we'll generate all these getters and setters. We don't have to, but it won't hurt our program at all. Maybe, I don't know. I'll do implement serializable here. I'm not even sure I have to, but I thought it had to do with like log4j, which we don't have right now, but whatever. We can implement serializable up there. That's more standard, because in order to make a Java bean, it's required that you have serializable, and there's a couple other things. So anyway, this class here makes Java beans for account. Alright, now we can go to, so you see in our app, the user inputs an int, and that int will create like this, like a Java bean. And now we need to do some more like sophisticated stuff. So in our service layer, I think the best course of action is to, go to the service layer. And I'll show you the dependency injection. Private iAccount DAO, we'll call it a DAO equals new account DAO. We'll write a note here. This implementation will start the account DAO layer and connect to DB to do transaction. Okay, so what's going on here is an instance of this implementation's here. Okay, this insert, because what we're doing is we're inserting this. It's hard to explain, but we're basically going to use our account DAO layer by we're using our account DAO layer to interact with the database, but we have to do this dependency injection. There's really no good way to explain it. I'm just not articulate enough or knowledgeable enough to do it. So public int insert account a, so we're inserting that integer, that example integer. It wants me to import account. Go ahead and do it. Alright. And then we have to make a connection. To use this DAO layer, we have to have a connection. Connection con equals connection util dot get connection. And we have to import this connection. I don't know why this is getting mad at me. Do I need more? Oh, I need a return statement. That is true. Yeah, it's funny how they want you to just like jump ahead and start doing stuff. But we'll be returning like just something. This just doesn't make any sense now, but there's no good way of this. It wants a return statement. It's useful later. Okay, string SQL we're making the query to insert the number that we typed in. This is not really case sensitive, but this just is good practice to just do it according to the way everyone else does it. Example, so we're inserting into the example column question mark. Now this is confusing here. This stuff's confusing, but you have to type question mark in there. Returning, and we're going to return an account ID. We're going to return an account ID, and you have to put in the statement here. Okay. Try prepared statement. Prepared statement is a Java class. It's going to want you to import it. We're just making a variable here, little stmt con dot prepare statement is equal. Prepared statement is this string. This is the prepared statement. And it wants us to add catch clauses here. Yeah. That will throw a runtime exception if something's messed up. Okay, so we're gonna do stmt dot set int. I'll show you what happens if you do set string, because this is like that. Naturally, you would think it's set string 1, comma a dot get example. Remember, we made those getters and setters for the example field in the account class. You see, there's an error here because I provided an int. I provided int because the get example is an int, but required type is string here. But there actually is a method called set int. And I wonder, where is this from? The statement class? Prepared statement class. The prepared statement class has a method called set int. So thank God they got that. Makes my life a little bit easier. And when you're doing stmt dot, when you're doing prepared statement dot, and then you're calling this method, this number 1 here, it refers to this question mark here. So 1 is like the first question mark it sees. It's gonna put this number we entered. So let's say please enter an example number. Let's say we entered the number 60. It's gonna take this number 60, okay, and then put it into here, into the prepared, into this question mark, into this index. It's going to put the number 60. And we have the get example because we have in our account layer, we have a thing. You see, it's highlighted. See, because we're using it. We're using the get example getter. Okay. Result set rs, create a variable, and result set is a wrapper. Result set.java is a class, a table of data representing database results. We have result set, we have get byte, get short, we have all these types. Row inserted. So there's all kinds of result set things you could do. Let's see that again. I'm gonna look at that again. Actually, that was interesting. Result set. Oh, it's an interface. What was I thinking? It's a public interface, and it extends the wrapper class. No, it extends the public interface wrapper. What do these import? Okay. So these are all kinds of interfaces and methods for getting data. Cool. Okay. Result set. If equals statement dot is not null, oops. So I have a note here. If we return data, we can iterate over it. Then we'll go rs.next. And I'll write a note here. We need to capture the first column of data returned, which is the ID of the returned user. Okay. So it's the result. So when it comes back from the database and the result set, of the result set of the executed query exists. If it's there, then we're gonna start looking over at the result set. We're gonna go to the next. We're gonna look at the result basically from the result set. As long as we get back information, we're gonna look over it. Int ID equals rs dot get int at 1. We're gonna get. I think this means like we're getting the first. Yeah, I think we're getting the first thing. The first thing we get back. No, the first column of the information we're getting back is going to be this ID. Okay. We're going to sout we return an account with ID number, and we're going to do plus ID. So this ID here, the result set. We're going to return the ID. I think this all makes sense here. Yeah, I think this is good here. Nope, that won't work. I don't want it up there. I want it up here. We could format this later, I guess. Yeah. Why is it giving me an error here? Delete unreachable statement. No, I don't want to delete it though. I'm supposed to have another block here, right? I have to be mindful of these scopes. What happened to all my scopes? Try this. Okay, let me go over this. Result set, connection util, try prepared statement dot set int, right? Do I have to import this? But I already added a try catch. If rs dot next. Wait, why did I put a bracket there? I don't know why I did that. I got confused because I typed this out. Maybe. Alright, I got no errors now. This looks right. So yeah, we're going to return -1. We're returning a value that's like impossible for the database to send back to us because it's serialized. It's only the ID column is only going to be a number between like 1 and whatever 5 million or something. Alright, so I think this account DAO is finished. I account DAO, it only has one interface thing here. Okay, and it says we've implemented it, so that's good. We're going to go to our account service, and this is also known as like business math. So this takes like data from the scanner class or from the stuff we get back from the database, and it just does stuff like it just helps. It interacts with the user with the information that comes back from database basically. So we're going to clean up the account service class. This method, I'm going to call it insert example. We're going to insert the example number. They're going to want us to import stuff. Import class. So, inserting example number, generated underscore ID equals a DAO dot insert a, that balance number. I always put a U in there, I don't know why. Okay. The note here is int value should be the first result from the query. So we're going to have an int called generated ID, which will equal the stuff that happened in this layer, account DAO, when we inserted A, all this stuff. It wants return type. This thing is going to return A, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, you see how this is not a void? It wants a return value. Make it stop bugging out. If generated ID does not equal -1, which it shouldn't, there's no way it can equal -1, and generated ID does not equal a dot get ID, just go with it. A dot set ID, we're going to set the ID to the generated ID. Okay, so our instance of account is gonna have the an ID. It's gonna have a example number and it's gonna have an ID number. It's all gonna be set. The account for business math is now set to the result from the database, from the DB query, I guess from all that DB querying stuff we did. So successfully ID of space a.getID. We're going to get that ID again, return A. So our account service is gonna the account service is gonna call the DAO layer and tell it to go and do that stuff where it talks to the database. The database is going to come back with a confirmation that that integer was inserted into the database, and it's going to come back with proof of it, which is basically the primary key. And then the account service layer is going to make sure that value equals it's just going to take that value and then it's going to put it into a setter, and it's going to set the account to have an ID field as well, basically. So I have to finish making this main method, and I have to call the account service to insert. I'm going to finish this up here. Thread.sleep. Let's make the thread sleep for 3 seconds. This out. This is all formality stuff. I don't even have to do this. Press 1 to end program. And you can, let's say somebody just typed in another thing here. And then the way we break out of the program, we can end the program, is we can put break in there. Alright, so a user is going to enter a digit, and then we're going to call the account service layer, and we're going to run this method. Okay, so we're going to run this integer, which we called example. We gave it a reference called example. We're going to call the account service layer, and we're going to ask it to run this method here, insert example, and then once this method is called, you can follow it. It's going to print out inserting example number. It's going to go to the DAO layer / this interface layer, and it's going to go through the connection. It's going to make a connection. It's going to insert this SQL statement into the database. It's going to come back and read the first column entry it sees, and it's going to say we got an account ID of 1. It's going to return that ID number. The account service layer is then going to check that ID number. It's going to basically set it to it's going to put it into one of the constructors. It's going to set our account object with an ID and it's going to print it out. Print a.getID, and there's an error here. Add exception to method signature. Okay, we'll add that exception. Okay, so let's run this program. Let's see what happens. No errors, please. Okay, so let's enter a number. Damn, got an error. Okay, so I got a Postgres error. At or near value. Maybe my table is wrong for some reason. It's a syntax error. Okay. We'll go to our account DAO. Insert into account example value. Returning account.id. Well, let's check the SQL statement, see if it's correct. I think it wants plural, values. I think that was just a typo. Okay. I guess value is not a valid SQL word, but values. Maybe it'll accept that. So let's run it again. Please enter an example number. Let's try 60 again. Inserting example number, and it worked. Establish connection to database. We return an account with an ID number 2. Successfully entered with ID of 2. And we'll check our database here. We'll check this table and we'll refresh it. Look at that, ID of 2, and we typed in 60. And it worked. So there you go. That's the DAO pattern. And I hope that made a little bit of sense. But to me, I think the most important concept is the fact that your account service layer is going to implement the DAO layer. That's what you need to know. The account service layer implements the DAO layer. And the way you implement the DAO layer is up top, you have to create an instance of the DAO layer. And the way you create an instance of the DAO layer is you say interface, the interface call. You call the interface, you make a reference to that interface, and you say that equals a new account DAO. It equals a new object. So you make an object of this account DAO layer, but you have to implement this interface. And when we're adding, let's say we're adding information to the table like we just did, we added a column value, we'll make a method called like insert. And you insert this Java bean, account A. So you insert from here, you insert this. Okay? You're inserting that bean, I guess. I don't know if I'm wording this correctly. But when we you have to insert that value to execute your SQL statement. And then the account service layer. So first the account service calls the DAO comes back with information. Then the account service sets the object, the account object, this object here. It sets the account object with the ID, with some more information. And then returns the object back, return A. Return A mostly, to me, it's like mostly because you just have to, because this is not a void method. Sorry, my mouse is at the wrong spot. Because this here is not a void method, you're going to have to return something. So you return A. And then here you're going to do, so you scan, so you input, and then you run, and then you run that method, insert example, and you'll eventually come back with that ID where we print it out on the console. Okay, so the source code is on GitHub, including the SQL script. So I recommend making that table first. You make your table, you'll set it up, and then when you run your program, your program is ready to insert information into the table. Okay, well, thanks for watching.